What's up, guys? Brian Ratzke here from MarylandSportsblog.com. Today we're going to talk about the Ravens bye week a little. Well, not specifically their bye week because that'll be kind of boring because I'm sure you guys were all very sad that the Ravens didn't play, just like I was. But we will be talking about the fourth quarter report card that I wrote up in a little bit more detail because I felt we needed something to talk about today, besides just previewing the Houston Texans game. So let's get right to it. I have the whole report card on my iPod. I gave Joe Flacco a B-. Basically because he's been great 2 games, not so great the other 2 games against the Tennessee Titans and the New York Jets. He just looked terrible. Still, he only has 3 interceptions on the season, which is extremely good for a quarterback. He knows how to handle the football and not turn it over, even though he has been fumbling a lot. But when it comes to pure interceptions, he hasn't been exactly throwing it away. He hasn't been doing a Tony Romo. And in the other 2 games, he's just been great. I think it has more to do with how the team around him plays, with the offensive line and everything, which I'll get to later. But the running backs, I gave them a B+. Ray Rice, he's just been the little spark plug, best offensive weapon, whatever you want to call it, most explosive player for the Ravens. But still, I don't give him a complete A because against Tennessee was shut down just like every group on the Ravens was. It was more to do with the offensive line not opening holes, but against the Jets you could see it again. And that's where we get to the receivers. I gave them a B. They've looked great at times, just like the whole offense. The whole offense against Pittsburgh and the St. Louis Rams looked absolutely phenomenal. But in the other 2 games, I have to give them a B only because they've kind of failed the other 2 games against the Jets and the Titans. Of course, they're playing good defenses against those teams, but it's still no excuse. We'll see how they do against Tennessee. But yeah, I give the receivers a B just because Torrey Smith, he showed that huge flashes with a 3-touchdown game against the St. Louis. Anquan Bolden's been solid. But then again, Ed Dickson, a guy who's looking like Joe Flacco's favorite receiver right now, has dropped a lot of passes. And it really doesn't bowl well. I think the receivers and Joe Flacco need a little bit more practice because he does have 5 new receivers to work with. The only guy that he's used to throwing to is Anquan Bolden, and that connection takes some time, and they did miss all the offseason except for a little training camp. So we'll see that improve as the season goes on, but even Joe Flacco, Torrey Smith, they've been off the page. There's been overthrows and underthrows, and it's not completely on Joe Flacco. It's just their timing is a little bit off. Same thing is happening with Ed Dickson. He's targeting him a lot. They're just not connecting. But as the season progresses, you'll see that get better. The offensive line, I would have to give them a C-. They're missing Ben Grubbs for the past 3 games has hurt them a lot. Let's not lie. Whichever guy has been in the right guard spot, it's been Garrard the past 2 games, but he he's still not as good as Ben Grubbs, and you can tell by the way the Ravens have been running the ball, especially against the New York Jets. They've been running to the right side when typically they would run to the left side. And Joe Flacco's just been hit entirely too often. He's been having to dance around in the pocket. You've seen him just running around for his life out there, trying to find an open receiver while guys are rushing him. And that's another reason why I grade Joe Flacco higher than a lot of other people, just because he has been getting a lot of pressure and still has made some plays. But the offensive line definitely needs improvement. Against Tennessee, they just got manhandled. They couldn't run the ball because it was mainly because the offensive line couldn't get anything done. They couldn't open up any holes. Same thing with the Jets until later in the game. They couldn't really open up any holes. Of course, the Ravens were running trying to pass the ball a lot more earlier in the game. All right, defensive line, I give them an A++++. Mainly because this is the best group on the Ravens right now. Let's not lie. Haloti Ngata has, excuse me. Haloti Ngata has just been dominating offensive linemen, especially centers. Terrence Cody, he's been like that sidekick. He's been Haloti Ngata's Robin, as he's been taking up his blockers. He's not always won't get all the credit that Haloti Ngata or a guy like Terrell Suggs has gotten, but he's just been doing great with eating up space, stopping the run. You really can't complain. And other guys like Pernell McPhee, Arthur Jones, they've been rotating in. Corey Redding has been playing well. Terrell Suggs has been dominant. That whole group has just put pressure on the quarterback. You guys saw how they handled Mark Sanchez. He had no time. He was just eaten up. And same thing happened with Sam Bradford, and Big Ben Roethlisberger. They just no time. The only game they fumbled, or the only game they stumbled, was against Matt Hasselbeck, but that was a whole team type of thing. I always go back to that game as when the Ravens didn't play well, but it's more that's a pass for that. Linebackers, I give them a B+. They haven't been as dominant as they usually are. Ray Lewis is getting old, but he's still playing well. Jameel McClain, he's been playing better than a lot of people would expect. He's had sacks, fumble recover for a touchdown. Jared Johnson's been solid. Terrell Suggs, I guess you can loop him in there. He's been outstanding. So I give them a B+. They haven't been as scary as before, but they still get the job done. Secondary, I give this group a B+. A lot of people would grade them lower, but with the circumstances, Kerry Williams and Lardarius Webb have been pretty solid. Again, except for the Titans game, but that was a whole team. Except for a few players that had decent games. But yeah, the secondary they shut down Pittsburgh pretty well. They shut down the Rams, and the Jets. Come on, we all saw that game. For a patchwork group of guys with Danny Groller, and a guy that was off the practice squad getting playing time against the Jets, you really have to take your hats off to him. I won't take my hat off now, but just saying, they've been great. Secondary, this is the second lowest grading on the report card for the fourth quarter, only because it's not about the specialists, but the kickoff and punt return teams and the coverage teams that have been shaky. Laquan Williams has been a little shaky at times with holding on to the football. They haven't been able to break big kickoff returns. Um, it's just been hard. David Reed's been hurt since the Titans game, and the only game he got to play in, which has really affected it a lot. But they've allowed big returns to the Jets, and at what was it, 107-yard return against the Jets right after the Ravens scored a defensive touchdown. That just doesn't bowl well. The Ravens have to do better at that. They're the only C I gave on the report card besides the offensive line, or along with the offensive line. Coaching, I gave the coaching staff an A. Some of you guys would disagree, but they got those Ravens ready to play each week. So, I mean, well, each week except for the Titans. Well, I keep going back to that game because it's the only game we lost, and it's the only game that we kind of look like crap. But I think the coaching staff has done a phenomenal job. Cam Cameron's been shaky at times, but John Harbaugh and Chuck Pagano have just always been on their game. I really like Chuck Pagano. He's the main reason why we have an A. He's brought the pressure. He's made quarterbacks uncomfortable. He's done wonders with the secondary. They've lost guys like Haluki Nakamura, Chris Carr, Jimmy Smith, even Tom Zibikowski, and they still find a way to shut down the wide receivers and tight ends. Just phenomenal coaching job on the defensive side of the ball. And even the offensive side, they've gotten it done for the most part. Let's talk a little bit about the Houston Texans game. Houston's going to be missing two of their superstars, Mario Williams, the great outside linebacker or defensive end, whichever position he's playing, and Andre Johnson is already listed as out. Sorry, I've been a little bit sick this week. But, yeah, with those guys out, I still think Texans is a solid team. Their defense has been playing better. The only two teams that have scored 20 points or more are the Saints and Oakland. The reason why I think the Ravens are winning, one is because they're playing at home, which they hardly ever lose at M&T Bank Stadium, and two, I don't even remember the last time the Texans beat us. I would have to do my research. It just seems like every year, even if the Ravens are having a down year, we always find a way to beat them. Be it the Texans haven't really had great teams in the past. They've always struggled to find that unique win that will launch them to greatness. They barely beat Pittsburgh when Pittsburgh was looking pretty weak. They barely beat them at home. They let them come all the way back, and they just blew a game against Oakland in which they were knocking on the doorsteps on the final play of the game, and they threw Matt Schaub threw an interception. I think we have good matchups. They have a great offensive line, which it's going to be strength versus strength with our great defensive line against our great offensive line. But I still think we'll get enough pressure on Matt Schaub to win this game. We do have to beware of the running game. Another thing, strength versus strength. We're great at stopping the run. So it will be a fun game to watch. I think the offense has to really come to play this week. And the Ravens should be getting a lot of guys back. The Houston Texans have a lot of guys on their injury report as limited. Same thing with the Ravens. I don't think it's going to be a big factor. I think a lot of those guys will suit up and play, which will really help the Ravens because they've been missing a lot of starters and key players. Just like Houston's going to be missing some. Andre Johnson, he's one of the best receivers in the game. He's a big, strong guy that can run with the ball after the catch. He's got great hands. Enough can't be said about him. All right. Sorry if I was a little bit sick during this video blog. It's been a long week. Hope you guys all have a great one. Peace.